Welcome back to Reformed Thinking. Today we are doing a deep dive into just 2 verses, but they are incredibly dense verses from 1 John chapter 5. We're looking at verses 4 and 5.
Right, and these verses promise this incredible total victory in the Christian life.
But, and this is the key, it anchors that victory in a spiritual reality that is just completely at odds with how the world thinks about success or, overcoming. Okay, so let's unpack this. We hear the word victory all the time in Christian circles, but the definitions can be really fuzzy. Sometimes it sounds like good marketing, sometimes it means feeling good or being prosperous.
Yeah, very vague.
But the sources we looked at really zoom in on this passage, 1 John 5.45, because it gives such a sharp, almost technical answer to what overcoming the world really is.
And more to the point where that power to conquer comes from.
Exactly.
John is writing to bring clarity here. I mean, he's writing to believers who are struggling, who are confused. And our mission today is really to just trace his logic. He builds this tight chain.
That's the chain.
It starts with the new birth. A new birth from God leads, inevitably, to overcoming the world. That overcoming happens through faith. And that faith has to have a very specific object, the true Son of God.
So it's not self-help.
Not at all. We're aiming to show that this victory is not self-generated strength. It's not about your willpower. It's a spiritual reality that is grounded completely in a sovereign act of God.
So for you, the listener, this is really about the difference between striving for a victory you have to earn
versus participating in a victory that's already been secured for you and given to you.
It's a massive shift in perspective. So let's start at the very beginning of that chain, the source of this new conquering life. John kicks us off with a really sweeping absolute statement in 1 John 5.4. He says, "For everyone who has been born of God overcomes the world."
Right there, that's the prerequisite. The new birth or regeneration is the absolute starting point for any kind of victory.
He's saying it's the intrinsic source, the very thing that makes overcoming possible at all.
And it guarantees it. The phrasing implies that all who are born of God will, as a pattern of their life, conquer this world system.
Okay, so the sources you mentioned said we have to get into the grammar here. The phrase has been born of God.
We do. It sounds technical, but you can't get the full meaning without it. John uses a Greek perfect passive participle, gegenemena.
Gegenemena.
And that grammatical choice carries almost all of the theological weight of the entire sentence.
So let's spend some time on that. Why is this perfect passive participle so central to a Reformed understanding of grace?
Well, let's break it down into its 2 parts. First, you have the perfect aspect.
Okay.
When John says a believer has been born, the perfect tense points to an action that was decisively completed in the past.
A one-time event.
A one-time event with ongoing, abiding results. That past action, God, regenerating you, creates a present state. The believer remains permanently in the state of being regenerated.
So it's not something I have to repeat. I don't have to get born again tomorrow.
No, absolutely not. It's a finished, secure, divine act. And this is so important because it means your ability to fight a spiritual battle today isn't based on how you feel today or how much willpower you mustered this morning.
It's based on a spiritual reality that was established and finished the moment God acted.
Exactly. That finished act in the past is what sustains your ability to overcome in the present. And that leads us to the second piece of the grammar.
Which is the passive voice.
Right, the passive voice. This underscores that this birth is something that is unilaterally received.
You don't do it to yourself.
You don't do it to yourself. It is not self-generated. It's not even initiated by a human decision. It is entirely the result of God's sovereign work upon you.
So John seems to be deliberately using his grammar to just shut the door on any idea that we contribute to our own new birth.
That's precisely the point. It signals divine initiative. God acts decisively to cause this new life. The turning point is a divine act, not a human one. The ability to believe, the ability to repent. That ability is given in the new birth.
And this is where we get the term monergistic grace.
This is it. The sources really connect this grammar to that theological framework. It's an act of monergistic grace. Monos, one. Ergon, work.
One worker.
One worker. God alone works to renew the will, making the heart able and willing to embrace Christ. He implants a new principle of life.
So the power to overcome just flows directly from that sovereign act.
Yes. The ability to conquer is literally built into the new life you receive. It's not an add-on you get later through discipline.
I want to push on that for a second. What if it was synergistic? If it required God and our will working together to create that new life, Would the passive voice even make sense here?
No, it would be the wrong grammatical choice. It would fundamentally contradict the passive voice. If the human will was a co-equal cause in creating the new life, you'd need a different construction, maybe an active voice.
But John doesn't use that.
He doesn't. He specifically chose this perfect passive structure to safeguard the truth that this new life is a divine implantation. The person who was once dominated by the world is now, by grace, no longer subject to it.
Because the life itself is victorious.
Right. And John is clear that this isn't just for a few super Christians.
He says, everyone who has been born of God.
Yes. And he uses this neuter singular word, pan, which means everything or everyone. He's stressing that this is a universal reality for this whole class of people. Overcoming the world is the normal, expected, characteristic pattern.
It's a family trait.
It's a family trait of the children of God. It's a declaration. If you are born of God, you overcome the world. Period.
So regeneration is the cause, and victory is the inevitable effect.
It's the necessary effect. And if that effect, that continuous pattern of overcoming, is totally absent, John's logic forces you to question if the cause, the new birth, was ever present.
It's an uncomfortable thought, but it's right there in the text.
It is. The new birth gives you an intrinsically victorious nature. And that new nature just fundamentally alters your relationship to the world system. This is the foundation for everything that follows. So after establishing the source of victory, John then gets even more precise. To define overcoming, he uses two different aspects of the same Greek verb, nika.
Which means to conquer or to gain the victory.
Right, and this distinction he makes is so important because it separates Christ's finished once-for-all work from our ongoing participation in it.
Okay, so he's using language with surgical precision here. He's showing us the objective basis for our victory and then the subjective expression of it.
That's a perfect way to put it. We have to look at the decisive conquest first.
Right.
When he talks about the victory that secured the triumph, he uses an aorist active participle, nikatessa.
Nikitessa, okay, and a chorus points to a past completed act.
A decisive completed act. It's instantaneous, it's non-repeatable. This is the moment the war was won once and for all.
And this isn't our victory.
No. Interpreters across the board connect this aorist verb to Christ's own triumph over the world, over sin, over Satan, through his death and resurrection.
It echoes what Jesus said in John 16:33, right? Take heart, I have overcome the world.
Exactly. Christ's victory is objective. It's external to us. It's finished. It's what establishes the certainty of the outcome.
Okay, that's the finished work. That's the objective reality.
Okay.
But if the victory is finished, why am I still struggling so much? How does that big cosmic finished work connect to my struggles on a Tuesday morning?
And that is the perfect question. And that's where the second tense John uses comes in, the continuous conquest.
Okay.
Back in the first part of the verse, everyone who has been born of God overcomes the world. That word overcomes is a present active indicative.
Yeah.
You guys.
And the present tense, unlike the aorist, is ongoing.
It is. It portrays overcoming as this ongoing characteristic reality. The person born of God keeps on overcoming the world. It's not a single decision you made once.
It's a continuous participation.
It is an ongoing participation in the decisive victory that Christ already secured. It's the pattern of life for every single regenerate person.
So John is deliberately holding these two things in tension. An objective, finished victory in the past, that's the aorist, Christ's work,
Right.
and an ongoing subjective manifestation of that victory in the present. That's the believer's life.
He is. And in doing so, he corrects two huge potential errors.
What are they?
First, he prevents legalism or perfectionism, the idea that victory depends purely on our performance right now. He says, no, your ability to overcome in the present is entirely grounded in Christ's finished work in the past.
My present victory depends on his past victory.
Absolutely. But second, he also prevents the opposite error, antinomianism, the idea that since Christ already won, it doesn't matter how I live.
Presumption.
Presumption. John says, no, the proof that you're connected to that past, decisive victory, is the continuous pattern of resistance you show in the present. The two are inseparable.
So true faith is always active. If you're united to the conqueror, you can't help but live like a conqueror, even while you're still fighting the daily skirmishes.
That's a great way to put it. The new life you received in regeneration inherently rebels against the world's system. The power source is permanent and external Christ's aorist victory.
But the expression of that power is continuous and internal, our present tense overcoming.
Right.
Let's go back to that inheritance analogy from the sources. I think it makes this grammar really clear.
It does. It's a great illustration. So The perfect passive participle has been born. That's like the legal document. It's the deed that confirms you received the asset, the new life, from God. And that state is permanent.
Okay, so I had the deed. Then the aorist participle has overcome. That's the moment the donor, Christ, decisively paid the full price and secured that asset.
Yes. That's the cross and resurrection. The transaction is done. It cannot be undone.
So then the present active indicative overcomes.
That's you, continuously living off the dividends of that asset. It's the practical, daily reality that shows you keep benefiting from a victory that was already won for you.
You're continuously conquering because you inherited a life that already conquered.
Exactly. You see the logical flow. The new birth is the prerequisite for the continuous experience of victory. So, moving on. John then names the specific instrument that connects Christ's decisive victory to our continuous reality.
Right at the end of verse 4. And this is the victory that has overcome the world, our faith.
Our faith.
Now, we have to be careful here. We've established that God does all the work in regeneration, and Christ secured the victory. So how can faith, our faith, be the victor? We can't make faith into the hero of the story.
And that is the essential point to make. Faith is purely instrumental, not meritorious. When John says, our faith, he doesn't mean the strength or the quality of our trust is what earns the victory.
So faith is
The tool.
a tool.
It's a tool. It's the God-given means by which the new life connects to Christ's objective conquest. Faith is a dependent, receptive act. It just points away from itself to its object.
The empty hand.
It's the empty hand. The Westminster Confession says faith is the alone instrument by which we receive and rest upon Christ. It's just the mechanism of reception.
So the power isn't in my believing. The power is in the one I'm believing in.
Precisely. The efficacy of this victorious faith lies entirely in its object, who is Christ. By trusting Christ, you are united to the one who already secured the conquest. Your victory is just a derivative of his.
So faith is the pipeline.
It's the Spirit-sustained pipeline that allows the believer to appropriate and live out the victory that was already given in regeneration.
Okay, so how does this faith actually work day to day? What does it look like on the ground to use this instrument to resist the world?
It functions as ongoing trust and reliance on the Son. It's not a one-time intellectual nod. John defines faith as this active, living, continuous state of dependence.
Which is why the verb for believes is also in the present tense. It's ongoing.
It's ongoing. It's an active posture. The world is constantly trying to deceive us with lies about what's valuable, what's true, what will make you happy.
Right.
And it is by actively believing God's counter-promises that the believer resists those lies. It's believing that Christ is better than what the world offers. That ongoing living faith is what sustains the act of overcoming.
So the moment we stop actively trusting God's promises and start listening to the world's promises, that's when our continuous victory falters.
And that's why we have to maintain that receptive posture. It's what allows the believer to keep living out their new identity, connecting that spiritual reality of the new birth directly to ethical action.
And that leads perfectly from the function of faith to the object of faith, because John immediately sharpens the definition with this rhetorical question.
Right, in verse 5. Who is it that overcomes the world except the one who believes that Jesus is the Son of God?
Why that specific technical confession? Why is that so critical for victory? Why not just a generic belief in God or a higher power?
Because that specific confession carries a massive Christological weight. Julian is saying that victorious faith is inseparable from orthodox doctrine about who Jesus is. He's drawing a very clear boundary line.
So if the object of our faith is wrong, the faith itself is powerless.
It can't connect you to the objective conquest, so your faith has to have specific content.
And that content is Jesus is the Son of God. Let's break that phrase down. What are the two essential parts?
Well, first, Jesus. This points to the historical incarnate person, the man who lived and died and rose in first-century Palestine. This grounds our faith in his true physical humanity.
And second,
The Son of God. This identifies him as the unique, eternal Son who shares the very nature of the Father. This affirms his true deity, and only a divine being could actually secure that once-for-all victory over the world.
now, John wasn't writing in a vacuum. The sources mention he was addressing specific doctrinal attacks happening in his community.
He was. He was battling early forms of what we'd call Gnosticism, specifically a belief system connected to a man named Cerinthus.
And what was the error there?
It was a form of Docetism. They claimed that Christ's physical body was just an illusion, or that the divine Christ Spirit came on the man Jesus at his baptism and then left him before the crucifixion.
So they denied that the divine Son of God actually suffered and died in the flesh.
Exactly. And John's point is, if you deny that, if you deny that the same person, Jesus, is the Son of God who truly suffered, you destroy the entire foundation of the victory. An illusory Christ can't atone for sin. A merely human Christ can't conquer death.
So the faith that overcomes has to be a specific, orthodox trust in the incarnate divine Son.
It cannot be vague spirituality. It cannot be generic religiosity.
This means the power of our faith is entirely dependent on the nature of the one we're trusting in. If Jesus is anything less than truly God and truly man, our faith is empty.
That's the critical point. This confession aligns perfectly with later Catholic and Reformed doctrine, which affirms Christ as the God-man. The faith that overcomes is bound to him because he is the only one who could conquer sin, death, and the world system.
So what about today? What are the consequences if someone denies or reduces the person of Christ, like in some modern cults or liberal theologies?
Any denial, any reduction undermines the foundation of victory. John's question, who is it that overcomes, is designed to exclude all other options.
It excludes Jesus as just a good moral teacher.
Or an inspirational figure, or a created being like in Arianism. If you trust in a reduced Jesus, a different Jesus, John says that is simply not saving faith, and therefore it cannot claim the promise of overcoming. Life and victory are tied to faith in this specific Jesus.
So you can't separate the new birth and the continuous conquest from right doctrine about Christ. The victory is doctrinally defined because its source is doctrinally defined.
So now we understand the source, which is regeneration. We understand the mode, which is faith. And the object, which is correct Christology. Now we have to define the enemy we're conquering.
The world. In John's writings, cosmos is a very specific theological idea. He doesn't just mean the planet Earth.
Not at all. He doesn't mean the physical creation or even just all the people on Earth in a general sense.
So how does John define this world that we are supposed to be continuously conquering?
He defines it as a moral spiritual system that is organized in active opposition to God. It's the organized moral and spiritual order that's in rebellion against its creator.
It's the collective alternative to the kingdom of God.
It is. It's the realm of hostility and unbelief. A system that doesn't know its maker, that hates Christ, and by extension hates his followers because they are not of the world.
So it's not just being a good person. We are actively resisting an organized counter-kingdom, one that has its own culture, its own values, its own reward structure.
Precisely. And John doesn't leave it as an abstract idea. He gives us concrete examples earlier in his letter in 1 John chapter 2.
Right, verses 15 and 16.
He says the world system is characterized by three things: the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. That's the practical battlefield.
Okay, let's break those down with some modern examples. What is the lust of the flesh in the 21st century?
Well, it's those intense, disordered physical appetites, sexual impurity, intemperance, addiction. The world system is built around gratifying these things instantly.
It promises satisfaction and freedom through indulgence.
It does. So overcoming here means resisting the constant commercialization of sex, the normalization of what God forbids, the pull toward gluttony or substance abuse. Faith overcomes this by trusting that Christ offers a deeper, real satisfaction that the world can't.
Okay, then the lust of the eyes. That sounds like materialism.
It is. It's the desire for what we see, the craving for things that promise status or comfort or security. It's greed. The world bombards us with ads designed to make us feel inadequate without the next new thing.
So how does faith overcome that?
Faith overcomes that by actively believing that Christ is our true treasure. It's knowing that the temporary riches the world dangles in front of us are a delusion. That enables us to practice contentment and generosity instead of constant accumulation.
And finally, the pride of life. This seems more internal. It's about self-exaltation.
It is. It's that competitive spirit, the desperate need for human approval, the worship of self-sufficiency. It's finding your worth in your job title, your social media followers, your accomplishments.
So overcoming the pride of life means what?
It means embracing the humility of Christ. It means actively believing that your identity and worth are defined entirely by God's grace, by the fact that you're passively born of God, not by what you can achieve.
So overcoming the world is this continuous pattern of resisting these three things: impurity, greed, and self-promotion. And that resistance isn't powered by willpower.
It's powered by the new life we've received. And this is exactly why John says in verse 3 that God's commandments are not burdensome.
Because we're no longer enslaved to the world's desires.
Right. If you are enslaved to the lust of the flesh, then God's commands about purity feel like a crushing weight. But if you've been set free, they are the path of that freedom.
So obedience is the practical expression of the victory.
It's the ethical outflow of it. The victory starts in the heart, rooted in regeneration, and it's expressed through this obedient resistance to the cosmos.
Okay, so this all links back to John's main purpose for writing this letter in the first place, which he states is so that his readers may know that they have eternal life. He wrote this for their assurance.
Right, for Christians who are unsettled, who are doubting their salvation because of false teaching.
So how does this whole definition of overcoming, grounded in regeneration and orthodox faith, how does that provide assurance?
It provides assurance by giving them a test, or rather a set of intertwined tests of life. Assurance isn't based on your feelings, it's based on observing the genuine work of God in your life.
And what are John's tests?
There are 3, and they're all linked. Right doctrine about Christ, which we just covered, obedience to God's commandments, and love for other believers. Overcoming the world is inseparable from all 3 of these. They all flow from the same source, being born of God.
So if the new birth guarantees a continuous pattern of conquering the world, John wants his readers to look at their lives and see that pattern of resistance.
Yes. And where they see that struggle, where they see that resistance, they can have assurance that the new life is real. The assurance is grounded in God's grace, not their own perfection.
But this is where it gets difficult for people. If victory is guaranteed for everyone born of God, what about our visible failures, our deep struggles? What about people who seem to completely abandon the faith?
It's a necessary question, and I think the answer is found in the doctrine of the perseverance of the saints. The Westminster Confession teaches that those whom God has called can neither totally nor finally fall away from the state of grace.
So John's perfect passive participle, that permanent new birth, guarantees the sustainability of the new life.
And therefore, it guarantees the sustainability of the effect, which is overcoming. A true believer will sin, they will fail daily, but they cannot cease the pattern of struggle and resistance.
So a total, final, unrepentant capitulation to the world
is evidence that the regeneration John talks about never actually happened. The struggle itself is the proof of life. The end of the struggle is the proof of death.
This is so different from how our culture defines success or victory.
The contrast is stark. A worldly view of victory is about external success, financial ease, feeling good, no struggles.
It's about achieving comfort through human effort.
Right. But the scriptural view is that victory is an intrinsic spiritual reality grounded in God's grace, and it's manifested as faithfulness to Christ in the midst of suffering, persecution, and distress. Overcoming isn't escaping the battle, it's remaining faithful in it.
So the true mark of the overcomer is not the absence of struggle, but the persistence in the struggle.
Precisely. The believer who is marginalized, who is battling indwelling sin, who is walking through deep suffering, that person can still be an overcomer because their victory isn't in their circumstances. It rests on their new identity and their allegiance to Christ.
So that grief you feel over your own sin.
Yes.
And that tension you feel with the world's values.
Those are actually powerful signs of new life. They're a confirmation that you are no longer at peace with the world.
And that's a huge comfort for the tender conscience. The pain of the fight is actually proof that the new victorious life is present and active inside you.
It is. Your confidence doesn't rest in the stability of your own will, but in the finished work of the Son of God and the permanence of the new life he grants. That's the truth John presents. To be born of God and to believe in his Son is to share, right now, in a victory that this world can neither give you nor take away. #tag outro. So we've done a careful analysis here of 1 John 5.45, and we've seen that the basis of overcoming is this sovereign, monergistic act of regeneration. It implants a new life that is just intrinsically incompatible with the world's rule.
And that new life is continuously expressed through faith in the incarnate divine Son of God. The victory is Christ's, secured in the past. Our faith is the instrument that lets us participate in it daily.
It's a defining characteristic of the children of God.
So for you, our listener, here's a final thought to consider. If the life you've received in regeneration is intrinsically victorious over the world's enslaving power, and we know that this world system is passing away, what specific cultural value or aspiration or pursuit, maybe related to the lust of the eyes or the pride of life, have you noticed becoming increasingly distasteful to you? Consider that growing tension not as a sign of your failure, but as powerful, concrete evidence that your new nature is actively at work.